Hi, I'm AJ with Phazers on Stun. I'm our drummer. I've been playing with the band since its inception, so 3 years. So I thought I'd talk today about playing volume, especially at rehearsals or when you're in a confined space like a rehearsal studio or a jam space. As the drummer, I'm kind of the limiting part for our group, so everybody can only play as quiet as I end up playing. So I thought I would talk about some of the options and some of the challenges and what we do in our own rehearsal space to kind of keep the volume down and save everybody's hearing. So when you're in your own space, your apartment or in your home, in a garage, typically you gotta play a little bit quieter to keep the neighbors happy, maybe your spouse happy, maybe your kids are sleeping. So if you're the drummer, you tend to play a little more reserved at home, or you end up playing on V drums and it's not quite the same experience as you would get playing in a studio. For us, we're really lucky. We've got a studio in New West, Fiasco Bros, where we actually rehearse. And when you get your own rehearsal space or you get your own jam space or room, sometimes the first intention is, hey, this is really cool, we can play as loud as possible, the amps go up to 11, the drummer really starts hammering on the cymbals. But the hazard of that is it starts to get really mushy, it starts to get hard to hear everybody's parts, and at that point it starts to get damaging on your hearing. So when you're playing in a studio space, and if you do crank up the volume, you can get in trouble with something called tinnitus, which is where you permanently damage the inside of your ears and you constantly get a ringing sound. So again, turning up is not always the best solution. So what can you do? There are a couple of different things. The first place that most musicians will go to is going to be earplugs. So you go down to the hardware store, you pick up the little orange compressible earplugs, you throw them in your ears, and the party continues at 120 decibels. So these are fine if you're going to be, working in the shop, doing some cutting on your table saw. Not the best for music. They do cut out all of the sound. It makes it very difficult to make out the parts, especially if you're doing any singing. All of a sudden you get your own voice in your head and that's all you can hear. So probably not the best recommended solution unless that's all you got. The next thing you can do, you could potentially go down to the hearing clinic and pick up a pair of musicians' earplugs. So these are the ones, they squirt the stuff in your ear, it molds it into your ear, and they fit in nice. They also have a filter on the inside of them that reduces the audio by a set number of decibels. These ones, for example, are minus 15 decibels, so it takes the sound volume right down. Those are, again, nice. They're fairly comfortable to wear for a long time. Again, you still have the problem where sometimes the sound gets a little mushy because you don't really hear all the nuances. You do also hear yourself in your head quite a bit. So they are definitely the best solution if you want to go with earplugs. So earplugs are great, but they don't help you keep the volume down in the studio space. The limiting factor in a lot of bringing the volume down is going to be the drums. And while it would be nice to be able to just reach over to the drum amp and just turn down the volume knob, not everybody wants to play on V drums. Not every rehearsal area is going to have V drums. So there are some options you can do. You can play softer, which can be hard, especially if you're like me and you tend to get into the music a little bit. So what I've done is I've switched in the rehearsal space to using blast sticks. Blast sticks are essentially just a single stick made up of a bunch of small rods or dowels held together, in this case basically just by heat shrink tape. So these ones are great. They do help you keep your volume down, but sometimes they are a little bit pricey. For example, these are about $35 to $40 a pair when you throw taxes into it. But I've been experimenting with making my own, as they are basically just a bundle of doweling. So I've made a couple of different pairs in 2 different sizes. So I've made some similar to the professional models I just held up. And these ones have fared pretty well. I do find the thinner rods tend to break a little bit if you're playing, again, like 80s rock covers is what we're playing, so they tend to get chewed a little bit. So I've tried making some with a bit bigger dowels, and I found these ones are great. I've made several pairs of these. They hold up a little bit better. and I find they actually make kind of a nice little snap on the snare drum. They do play fairly close to regular sticks. I found that the wood ones seem to work the best if you're trying to emulate regular drumsticks. I do have a plastic pair that are nice. They're almost like brushes. I find these ones play very similar to how brushes would play. So not exactly the best. They're a little bit whippy, but again, different options for depending on what music you're playing. So blast sticks, I think, are one of the nice options that drummers have if you want to try and keep the volume down in your rehearsal space. So yeah, if you've got your own space, you play quiet, or you want to play out in the studio, you can either try some earplugs, which will work great, but don't help you keep the volume down. If you do want to try playing with the volume down, you can play softer. You can try blast sticks. You could try V-drums. They're all definitely options available to the drummer. So thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you again.